Our world is changing. From the pandemic to social unrest to wars, division, and climate change. It's time to envision a new way of living in and surviving the shift of ages. The Hopi call this the time of the Great Purification and talk about different worlds. Their petroglyphs and the other petroglyphs around the world tell the story of what happens during the shift, the geomagnetic pole shift. Learn what the indigenous peoples of the world, scientists, researchers, prophets, psychics, remote viewers, and more say about what our Earth may experience in most of our lifetimes. Learn what we can do to prepare for what might be coming in a matter of decades. Are you brave enough to envision a new Earth? Welcome, everyone, to another Envisioning a New Earth show. I am your host, Joan Serio, and today I have Dr. Linda Backman as my guest. Featured on Dr. Oz and Coast to Coast AM, Dr. Linda Backman is an expert teacher, regression therapist, and licensed psychologist with over 40 years of private practice experience, including over 25 years guiding soul regressions. Linda's books are Souls on Earth, The Evolving Soul, and Bringing Soul to Light. Linda founded the Raven Heart Center Institute in Boulder, Colorado in 1997 and teaches regularly worldwide. She's an international expert in understanding how reincarnation plays a pivotal role in our personal growth and relationships. Her website is ravenheartcenter.com. Welcome to our show today, Dr. Backman. I'm so pleased to have you here.
Thank you, Joan. It's great to be with you.
Well, this is a topic that's always interested me. And I was told at one time that if I had a past life regression, I should plan on a long time because I have many past lives. And in reviewing your information, I'm not quite sure where, I'm bounded, but we'll find out maybe later. So anyways, let's start with some basic information. I'm curious as to how you got started as a licensed psychologist. How did you get into soul regression therapy?
Well, it was certainly not something that I expected, Joan, or certainly, when it happened was not on my radar. So the story, which I've told, so many times, and yet telling it, I hope for people just kind of normalizes to some extent this whole topic. So the story is back in 1993, as I always say, I was minding my own business. I was a psychologist in general private practice. I was interested in death, dying, and grief work, did a lot of that kind of counseling. I didn't totally understand why. I mean, I thought I did, but really and truly I didn't. So in 1993, my original psychologist colleague, a man that at that point was 14 years younger than I was at the time, I was in my middle 40s at the time, he died of a type of lung cancer at the age of 32, which, wow, from a human standpoint seems horrendous to any of us. So when he passed in the spring of 93, what happened was back then completely shocking to me at that time. So he died. That was very painful and challenging. And he had a family, a wife, a young child. But what happened was he began to talk to me from the other side, which I didn't really understand at all at that point in time. He began to talk to me from the other side. And I knew a little bit about reincarnation, not a lot. And I wasn't even sure in 93 if I believed in reincarnation. He also started showing me in my mind's eye and my intuitive awareness, I began to believe I saw scenes of past lives that I shared with him. So I thought, well, either this is just crazy or something odd is going on for me. So anyway, I asked my husband to sit down. And my husband, this colleague of mine, was a golfing and lunch friend of my husband. So I thought, well, okay, I suppose, my husband might think this is really odd, but nonetheless, I asked my husband, Earl, to sit down, and I explained to him what I was experiencing. My husband was a university professor for a very long time. We're very liberal politically and socially, always have been. I thought my husband would look back at me as I explained this and, kind of roll his eyes and say, oh my goodness, what's the matter with you? But he didn't. And I said to him, I could see by the look on his face. I said, you don't think this is weird, do you? And he said, no. And so I said, very quickly, Joan, I said, well, why don't you think this is just completely, strange and unusual? And so here's what he said. He said, only now on that day in 93, he said, only now do I recall that when I was a boy about 10, my husband said, I knew my past lives in detail. My details of my past lives at times came to me. And he said, in particular, I knew I was a man. I lived in India. And Earl just said, I knew that was real. Somehow I knew it was all very real. But he said, I just tucked it away, never told anyone, because I thought they'd think I was the strangest, kid in the neighborhood. And he said, I forgot. So basically he said, no, I've always believed in reincarnation and the soul. And he said, look, if you're interested, I'm happy to support you in whatever way you want to take this. So that's what occurred.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're lucky to have that support, especially from your partner. Yeah.
I'm totally lucky. I agree with you to have that support. And what I know today, what is it, 28 or so years ago, almost 29 years ago, that was all scheduled. I didn't know that back then, but it was all being orchestrated as things happen at the soul level. There was a plan for him to be able to support me.
Yeah, funny how things work that way.
Exactly.
Yeah. So for the people that are watching that may not know about regression therapy, can you explain what happens during a session?
Yes, and I'll preface it by saying, for people who've never had a regression, the common thing to think is, I wouldn't get any information. That's somebody else that this, functions well for, and that's absolutely not the case. But yes, so regression therapy is more simple than people might think, and so it simply means that I guide the client into relaxation. Yes, it's hypnosis, but people, there's kind of an odd mystique about hypnosis. People think, I'm completely out of touch with myself. You can get stuck in hypnosis. That's absolutely not true. And so I guide someone literally to relax. When we relax, even when we're naturally relaxing, like it's late in the day or evening or whatever, and you're going to listen to music or, have a cup of tea, have a glass of wine, whatever. When we relax, we know through brain research that basically the right hemisphere of our brain, which is where our intuitive capability is housed, the right hemisphere of our brain becomes more lit up on a brain scan. In other words, it becomes more open and active. So I guide the client to relax. Then through breathing and metaphor, I guide them into, quote unquote, the first scene of an important past life. The past life that's going to come forward is the life the spiritual guides, and we all have spiritual guides, whether we know we do or we don't. Your spiritual guides choose a past life to come forward that has a direct relevance to your current life. Excuse me. Now, a lot of people think, then I'm going to discover a past life where I did something terrible and wrong and it's traumatic. Not necessarily. Bottom line, we evolve lifetime to lifetime. We have free will when we come into body on earth. So we might make not the best choices. Right. So sometimes the past life has some circumstances that were challenging. Sometimes the past life is not what we would call karmic. Sometimes the past life is what we would call as dharma, meaning what did I accomplish in a past life that today I don't give myself credit for? And so
mm-hmm.
it's just that simple.
Oh, so there's nothing to be frightened about, or that's good. So people should, feel free to check it out if they're interested in it. So what types of information do you get from your clients? Like, what's something typical that they say, something that always comes up during these sessions?
Yeah, and what might be helpful is for me to talk about the options, or even what we might call a longer regression, which I call between lives soul regression, that comes up. So kind of the package is hard to kind of put it in a package, but the package of a regression is the discovery of an important past life. We go through the past life scene by scene. It could be 3 scenes, it could be 6 scenes. That really is managed by your guides. We understand what happened in the past life, the details, the scenes, the sort of ongoing process of the life. And we go all the way to the death scene. And as I say to clients, that doesn't mean you as the client are going to feel like you're dying in your current body. That means you're going to know when you died in the past life, how you died, who was there, and those circumstances. Once the client dies, what they actually experience, which, years ago, this wouldn't have made sense to me. But what they experience is what happens when we die. The client experiences that portion of our soul that resides in our body during a lifetime that causes us to live and breathe. That, you might say, slice or aspect or holographic portion essentially speeds up its frequency, leaves the body because the body's no longer functioning, and begins its return journey to step back into the higher self in the higher realm. The longer regression includes that piece. Then the client not only understands what happened in an important past life and how it's connected to current life, but also who am I as a soul? How did I plan to come into body in my current life? They might learn who are the souls we incarnate with the most. That is what I like to call a soul pod.
Soul pod, soul group.
Yeah, soul group, soul pod. The client brings questions to the regression, and we ask questions to the spiritual guide of the client. And almost always, at least one spiritual guide comes forward once the past life is over.
Okay. And how does the guide come through? Is it through the client, or does the guide come through you?
Oh, that's a great question. No, the client, the guide comes through the client. The guide will describe to me either the look or the feel of the energy of the guide. The guide doesn't always give a name, but at times the guide does give a name. And so the client really becomes their own channel. They're channeling they're channeling their past life, and they're channeling their own guide. And I mean, even for as long as I've been doing this work, I still find it completely fascinating. I at times end up conversing with the guide. I'll say, could you ask your spiritual guide if I might ask a question? Sometimes a question about the client pops into my mind. And so I often will ask a question to the guide, and the answer comes through the client.
So in these sessions, you kind of guide the client through some open-ended questions or whatever, and then they just start, and then their guides kind of assist them through it. Is that a fairly good summary?
Yeah, that's a great summary. And for some people, they already have a sense of who their guide or guides are. For other people, they've never connected with a guide at all. Then, like I said, a little bit ago, we all have a spiritual guide, even if we've never had a feel, a perspective, an intuition about a guide. But the bottom line, Joan, and sort of my cardinal rule when I train people in this kind of work is I don't tell the client what information is coming forward in the regression. The client tells me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so in these regressions, then it's usually just one life they talk about.
Usually, yes, but not always. Usually, yes, it's one past life in detail.
Mm-hmm.
If the guide feels like there's another past life that needs to be, explained or shown to the client, then the guide will bring another life forward. And if that happens, always there's some link between not just each past life with current life, but there's a link between the past lives. There's some common thread that sort of correlates the past lives that come forward. And you probably will get to this, but I'll just add, and then we can talk more about it if you want. Probably listeners won't be surprised when I say there are times when clients have past lives that are not on Earth, or what I call interplanetary past lives.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was just what I was going to ask you about next. You must be intuitive. Yes, from researching all of your work, I see that you say there are 3 soul types. Would you explain what they are for us?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. And I'll just say to listeners, because this is the kind of the course of how this information kept coming to me through regressions, is that when I first trained in regression work, and I trained in past life regression, and then I trained in the longer regression. But when I trained in the longer regression, the person that was once my mentor said a little bit about, well, occasionally, group who are learning, occasionally, you might have a client who goes to a past life not on Earth. So I knew that was a possibility. For me, I always forget how to calculate length of time, but probably for the first maybe 6 to 10 years of guiding regression, most of the time my clients went to lives on Earth. Then, and I'm sure my guides keep teaching me. So then apparently my guides decided, all right, now we want Linda to learn more about, to learn more and to be able to assist and support clients who have lives not on Earth. So all of a sudden, after about 6 to 10 years of regression work, I started having numerous clients, not knowing where they were going to go in a past life. I had many, many clients begin to discover past lives not on Earth. And so that my sort of word we don't use a whole lot anymore because everything's all digitized, but my sort of encyclopedia in my head of understanding souls and lives and evolution, my encyclopedia in my head began to expand because I started having numerous clients that went to lives not here on this planet.
So from other planets? Just other planets?
Yes. The easiest way to put that into context, because that's a common question. So these clients began to discover past lives, perhaps on a planet, star system, or even sometimes in you might call it a non-dense location in the spiritual realm that we might call, not just interplanetary, but sort of interdimensional.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have people that, souls that come back to Earth, and we have souls that have come from other planets and they're here now embodied. And we have souls, now there's a third one. And where did those souls originate from?
Yes, and then maybe I should fill in just a little bit of information about interplanetary souls, but yes. So here's maybe an easier cosmology for people to grasp. And again, as I'm speaking, I'm simply sharing what I've learned over now it's, 28 years or so of guiding regression clients pretty much week in and week out. So the whole cosmology is that there are souls that when they're created, those souls are designed or created to incarnate primarily on Earth. And the term I've been given through regression is that is an Earth-based soul. And just for clarity, because so often I think people think I'm saying earthbound soul, and usually people use the term earthbound, meaning a soul that hasn't fully crossed over. So that's not what I'm talking about.
Right, yeah.
Earth-based soul is just simply a soul intended and designed to incarnate primarily on Earth. Then there's an interplanetary soul. That soul is somewhat different, created to not incarnate primarily on Earth, but that soul is designed to incarnate somewhere in the spiritual realm, in the higher realm. So we often learn with an interplanetary soul client, what I find in regression is that client seems to need to know, where do they come from and what is it that makes them unique? Because interplanetary souls sometimes struggle with being on Earth. Obviously, they're my clients, so they're here now. But interplanetary souls tend to feel somewhat different than a lot of other people. So that's an interplanetary soul. I can say more about that later if you want me to. Then, like you're saying, there's a third type of soul. And this is, again, kind of a sequence of my learning. This is the third type of soul that began to come into my practice more and more. There are souls that come to Earth, and they are designed as souls that incarnate in the angelic realm. And the angelic realm is different than interplanetary. The angelic realm, some people might call that a Davic soul, D-E-V-I-C, that is often referred to as the Davic realm or the Davic kingdom. The angelic realm serves the divine, or are essentially ambassadors of whatever people want to call the divine, God, Great Spirit, the source, whatever word fits for people. That's the highly evolved, what we might call divine energy that I think fair to call it, it's always hard to find the right words, that oversees Earth, or that attempts to guide humanity forward in evolution. Angelic souls support the divine and carry divine energy, or carry a pure energy of love and compassion. So an angelic soul is the third type of soul that I've come across in working with clients.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that they kind of came in waves. You started with Earth, and you did the interplanetary, and then you did the angelic. Do you think that was solely, pardon the pun, based on your progression as you work through all of this? And was it because of the changes in the energy here on Earth and what was needed as far as the souls coming in, or what these souls needed to hear at this time?
Well, now you're being intuitive. So the answer is kind of two-part, and a piece of it is what you just said. So and this is always where I don't want to confuse people, and yet I've learned so much over the years that I love to share it, because I think it helps people have a broader perspective of life on Earth, who are each of us as a soul. So I think the best answer to your question is a couple of things. One is that, let me see if I can make this simple. That's why I'm pausing. So Earth-based souls evolve from being very, very young souls to gradually evolving to being more evolved souls, more souls of greater wisdom. Earth-based souls evolve lifetime to lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, sort of ad nauseum on Earth.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
interplanetary souls, if they come to Earth, come from evolved cultures in the universe, evolved cultures in the higher realm. And the only reason they come to Earth is because they carry great wisdom, great, a more evolved perspective, and we need their wisdom on Earth. And angelic souls also evolve, and yet their basic energy or perspective, as I said, is all love and compassion. So I think what happened, as my guides were, and I really believe my guides feed clients into my practice, of course, for the client, but also for my learning. So what I know is that the approximate percent of evolved souls on the planet as humans is about 5% of the human population. And if we subdivide that into earth-based souls that are evolved, IP souls, interplanetary souls, and angelic souls, of that 5%, about half of that 5% are advanced earth-based souls. And then the other 2.5% is split apart into, and I use the words, the term IP for interplanetary and AR for angelic realm. That other 2 or 2.5% are interplanetary and angelic realm. So I think my guides were just trying to, first give me a foundation in understanding earth-based souls. And I certainly work with earth-based souls, kind of mid-range and beyond of evolution. But I think my guides were just slowly filling my knowledge base as we went along. And then to your point, Joan, my guides tell me, and I do get some of this intuitively, but it also comes through clients. My guides tell me that because humanity is struggling with so many issues at this time, there's a somewhat expanded infusion of IP and AR souls coming to Earth.
I would hope so,
Yeah.
especially now.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. And that speaks to the title of your program. Yeah.
Yes. And from a lot of the research that I've done and a lot of the guests that I've had on my show, what a lot of them say is that there's this cyclic cataclysmic event that happens on Earth about every 11 to 13,000 years, and that we are fast approaching the end of a cycle. And it was even to the point where Stefan Schwartz, who does remote viewing and has 1,500 remote viewers, said that they saw an Earth cataclysm coming from 2040 to 2045. And Doug Vogt had said it was coming towards the end of 2046. So, I mean, that says the same time. I mean, really, when you're talking about universe time, that's incredible. So my focus is to help people to awaken and to know about what may be coming and what we can do about it and how we can seed a new Earth. With that in mind, let's just say if that is true, then from what you have heard, could this information, come through in these regression therapies? Is there something that you've heard that kind of says yes to this or no to this, or how we can get out of this or anything related to it?
Yes. I don't necessarily hear dates and that sort of thing, like in 2040, blah, blah, blah will occur. What comes forward a lot with client sessions is, okay, I'm trying to think of how to make this simple. Probably the most common question that a client brings to the longer regression, the between lives soul regression, and they bring a list of about 5 questions that they hope their guides will answer. The most common question is what I hear it as life purpose. That's the term.
Why am I here? Yeah.
Why am I here? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where what you're talking about kind of segues, if I can put it that way, where for what reason, am I in body at this time? What I find is that for souls that have had a certain amount of either life experience on Earth or evolution somewhere else, these souls are being, I would say, pulled on heavily or encouraged to step up, encouraged to. I find that so my clients basically connect at their soul level or connect at their level of higher self. And what I find is happening a lot currently, and I see this in my own life as well as clients' lives, is that our souls at times agree, we might say, to augment our life contract. Like, in this information at times comes through in regression. It's sort of like, well, okay, the client might ask their guide during the regression, so for what reason did I come into body? And I want to be sure that listeners kind of grasp this from the perspective of, we don't really come into body with just one intention. We might come into body to heal some karma with another soul. And so we come into body and are in relationship, whether it's family relationship, romantic relationship, work relationship, friend relationship, to heal that or to balance that karma. But usually our life contract is, we might say, multifaceted. So it isn't just, did I come into body to, to teach? Did I come into body to write books or to be a musician or whatever? But it's usually multifaceted. And at this time on Earth, I'm finding from clients that many clients are being asked to, you might say, expand their life contract and step up. And, then people often wonder, well, what is it they should be doing? And that's where I think it's important for people to think about a couple of things. One is, it isn't just what do we do, it's also who are we as a person, or who are we as a next door neighbor, or who are we as a parent, a grandparent. It isn't just go out there and do something that's just so overt, like being a regression therapist or hosting a respected streaming program or whatever. Our life contract has more than one prong, you might say.
Right.
But many of us are being pushed to step up even more because humanity, has so many issues.
Especially now.
Totally.
Yeah. So sad about the war in Ukraine now. Yeah. So you also talk about councils, and I'm interested about that. So what type of councils are there, and can we join a council? Can we talk to a council?
Good question. Yeah.
And what do the councils do?
Yeah. What is a council and how does that work? Okay. So a couple of answers to that. One is that as an individual soul, each of us at the soul level has what we might call a council, what one of my mentors used to call a council of elders. So as a soul, when we cross over and finish a lifetime, or actually at the soul level, which, our higher self is functioning at all times. And it's just like for you and me, Joan, it's like, okay, so here we are in our human bodies. And, right now at this moment, we're having this conversation. While we're having this conversation, our higher selves have roles and responsibilities in the higher realm. When we, again, hard to make it simple, when we finish a lifetime and our soul leaves our body, our soul comes upon, call it a council, call it a team of probably at least 2 or 3 guides. Sometimes it's 5 or 6 guides. And that's the council that sort of supports us and oversees what we're doing when we're in body. So that's a personal council. But the councils that over the last, maybe 5 to 8 years that I've learned a lot about, there is a council that serves Earth. There is a group, call it a Congress, a parliament, a council that is a group of advanced souls, advanced Earth-based souls, and just pertaining to Earth for a minute. There is a large council of in the range of 100 or so souls, souls meaning higher selves, that work together to do what they can to guide Earth. Now, they don't come down here and, tinker with, all right, those humans aren't fixing climate change. So, we as guides, higher selves, all they can do is work through us and guide us. And some people then will say, well, who are those souls? And that's when we get into the whole conversation about ascended masters. So if people think about some of the classic ascended masters, yes, some of those classic names, Master Saint Germain, Master Moria, they're nameable ascended earth-based souls. Yes, some of those serve on the Earth High Council, but some of us as earth-based souls who are in body at this time, there are some souls that continue to incarnate whose souls are on the Earth High Council.
Oh, okay. So you can be embodied and on the council.
Yes. And of course, you have to be fairly evolved in order to serve on a council. So there's an Earth High Council. There's an interplanetary High Council. That interplanetary High Council are representatives from the higher realm locations that are, for the most part, within the solar system that contains Earth. And that high IP council works to support Earth. So that's an interplanetary council, interplanetary high, council with representatives from Earth and representatives from other celestial locations. And then lastly, there's an angelic realm council that coordinates the angelic realm and coordinates the angelic realm's relationship with Earth. So sometimes, the reason I teach about this is because for many of us, let me see how to say this. Some clients not only want to understand what's their life purpose, where are their past lives, how do their past lives affect them today, but for some of us, we might have some symptoms, and I'll explain those symptoms in a second, but we might have some indications of the pull or the responsibilities that our higher selves carry. And so I like to use the notion of as above, so below, as above, meaning if my higher self, just an example, if my higher self is trying to, okay, let's just say, and this is the way the Earth Council works. I happen to be an earth-based soul. So, and I know a certain amount about my own soul. My higher self has some responsibilities to the Earth High Council. And so souls can be aides to the Earth High Council, can serve, I know this sounds very kind of human to people, can serve on almost like a task force that infuses information to the Earth High Council. I might have a night where I don't sleep very well. And if I tap into my own intuition, or if I were to have someone guide me in a regression, I might discover that there was a challenging event going on Earth, and that my higher self, the reason I didn't sleep very well, which does happen at times for me, my higher self is, you might say, being pulled on to assist the Earth High Council to come up with new ways of assisting Earth. And we don't need to go too far down the road of what is literally going on, horrendous circumstance going on right now, in Europe. But I have no doubt that various souls, various guides are working hard to work through those of us on Earth to do all that we can to solve this horrendous situation that's going on in Europe right now.
You said that if you tapped into your intuition, that you could tell whether you were, working with a council or there was something that you needed to do. Can any of us, through our own intuition or through our own meditations, maybe contact a council or get that information or that assignment if we are one of those souls?
Yes, is the answer. And the best way for people to work on that is how to say this? We can, if we trust our intuition, and I teach people at times how to tap into your own intuition, but as, again, using myself as an example, I can connect with my own higher self if I practice that, because my higher self is directly connected to me. Now, can I connect with my next door neighbor's higher self? Maybe, but not necessarily, because that's not my soul. And sometimes people will come for regression and they'll say, Linda, one of the things I really want to ask today is how to help my child. And guides will make suggestions in the regression of how that client's going to can help their child. But often guides will also say, they've not been given permission to connect with the higher self of someone else.
Right. Yeah.
But we can always connect with our own higher self.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to go into somebody else's energy without their permission.
That's right. And you can't unless that soul agrees to that.
Right. So let me think. Has there ever been a case where someone brought through some specific information from a council, let's say, like the Earth Council, and I was on the council yesterday and this is what we need to do? Was there anything specific, any information like that comes through, like, oh, my soul told me that I need to do this now because XYZ?
Yes. I think what happens for people when when they're either using their own intuition, they're not having a regression and they learn information, or even when the information is coming through in regression, I think the normal human thing for us to do is to go, oh, maybe that's not accurate. Oh, maybe I'm making that up. So number one, I would say to people, please work hard to trust your intuition. But yes, a couple of things that come to mind, Joan, as you're asking me that, it is to share. So one thing I know and has come through in regression is that if you have a council, no matter which council it is, but we'll use the Earth Council as an example right now, the Earth Council doesn't always agree. The Earth, now, it doesn't it doesn't look like what we see going on in the United States with our government at times, our Congress in Washington. It's not hurtful. It's not where one person might really be rather defaming of someone else. It doesn't look that way. But I don't want people to over romanticize the Earth Council. At times you'll have one or two members of the Earth Council who will have one idea of how to assist Earth. And there might be another one or two or small group that have another idea. But yes, at times, for example, if I had a client today that I was guiding, that client might say, does my soul have any relationship to the Earth Council? And what is the Earth Council doing right now in regard to the circumstances with Russia and the Ukraine? So yes, information does come through at times. And I'll just add that the circumstances going on in Europe right now are completely, to the best of my knowledge, are completely related to the uniqueness of coming into body on Earth, which means we have free will. That is one of the unique qualities of Earth incarnation. And what's going on in Europe with Russia and the decisions that have been made is a free will choice on the part of someone who's operating from a not very evolved perspective. But then the Earth Council, as well as the other two councils, become very active and intense about what, if anything, can we do about this? Yeah.
Does the Earth Council have responsibility for the Earth grids?
I would say that yes. I would say the Earth Council has, it's almost like members of the Earth Council have areas of, you might call it specialty knowledge. And yes, they would have responsibility for really anything going on Earth. But again, they have to work through us in body. Yeah. So when you refer to the Earth grids, yeah, that sounds like that's a deeper question, meaning how those Earth grids affect humans, or yeah.
How they're holding the energy right now. What I've been told, and I don't know if this is so, that a lot of the PowerPoints that we've had on Earth, such as, Stonehenge and Sedona and other,
right,
that they're all changing, that they all may be changing. And so these Earth kind of acupuncture points are changing now. And so that the connection of these ley lines to form this grid is starting to change. Because as Earth ascends, we ascend, and, vice versa, everything's connected. So I was just wondering if you've heard anything about that.
I haven't heard anything about that, but what is sort of related, so I'll share it. Oftentimes, if I have a client let me see how to make this simple. Okay, so I might have a client that I guide in the longer regression, and the first step is that the client goes back to a past life during the early development of the Egyptian culture, and which is to my understanding, there are approximately 4 locations on the earth where the oldest cultures began, which I can share in a minute. But the client might go back to a past life in the area of Egypt around the time that the pyramids at Giza were developed, were created. And oftentimes that client of mine, we discover once the past life ends and the client crosses over, that that the client is an interplanetary soul. And that when the design of the pyramids, and this would apply to Stonehenge too, because people question, how did all this happen? How did the structure,
all the pyramids around the world,
how did that come to be? Or how did they bring these stones to Stonehenge and place them upright in this astrological design? So, but oftentimes, which people might find interesting to hear, if a soul was how to say this, many of the souls that related or existed during the time of the creation of the pyramids were interplanetary souls who had this sacred geometric knowledge in order to aid in the building of the structures at Giza. And so often when I have clients talking about energetic change on the earth, like you're talking about, often my client is an interplanetary soul tied to that type of energetic shift going on. Yeah. I've
been told I'm not from here.
Anyway,
we're getting close to the end of the hour, and I just wanted to see what you might say about this. I had an experience when I was in Sedona, and it was with this Libyan glass tektite. It was called Cribrion, Libyan desert glass, and we called it the brain because it looked like a brain, and it's green, and it was about that big. And so I was just meditating with it, and I found myself in front of a council, and I think I said a council of 10.
Okay.
And they were like in a semicircle, and I was standing in front of them, and I don't know that I was heard anything in particular, but what came through was something about the earth. And I was to do something with the earth. And then I started picking atoms out of the sky and just putting them together and creating and whatever. I don't know. But could that have been that sort of experience, for lack of a better word? Could that have been me contacting a council?
Absolutely. And oh my gosh, of course we could have a much longer conversation, which we don't have time for today.
I know we don't. I know, but because I'm like, that's why I wanted to ask, can you contact a council without going through a regression? And because I think I did.
Oh yes, I mean the answer is yes. You can contact a council without going through a regression, and I mean that's probably the most predominant reason that I guide regression and people come for regression, is to validate, is either to get initial information or to validate, like you just described, Joan, to validate why did I have this supposedly odd energetic experience? Why have I been told I'm not from here? And sort of what we might call high level energetic responsibilities are often my clients that are interplanetary souls, because it means that client comes from a culture. All interplanetary souls have a home base in the universe, a location. And it's more common for interplanetary souls to have that wisdom, that energetic, call it astrological, call it sacred geometry, that knowledge of working with energy because of where you come from.
Yep. That answers a lot then. That answers a lot.
Good.
Yeah, especially from what I've written in my books. So this has been wonderful. I've really enjoyed talking to you, Dr. Backman. This has been really informative and interesting. And I know that you have a class coming up, and I think a lot of people will be interested in this right now because all of us are kind of stepping up our games, as you're saying. And this is about finding your soul purpose and working with why you came.
Yeah, so I have a virtual course coming up starting in early April. There's a bonus class in March if you sign up by a certain date, but it's a 4-month class, and we meet 3 times a month. We meet live 3 times a month. Everything is recorded, so if you can't be there live, you can always go back to the recording. The overriding focus of this course is what is your current purpose? What might have changed of late? Also, I always bring into my courses helping people know who are their guides and how to tap into their guides. Also, are they earth-based? Are they interplanetary? Are they angelic realms? So we're going to be basically working on why am I here now? What might have changed in my soul agreements? What's my higher self doing while I'm here? We will, of course, talk about counsel. So yes, it's a new course starting in about a month or so.
Very timely, very needed.
Yeah.
So happy that you're doing that. And I will put the link to that in the description for this video. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today?
I would just say to people, we all are here with purpose. And if you love being a grandparent, that can be your purpose. If you want to write a book, that can be your purpose. So we're all here with purpose. Trust your intuition, trust where your passions lie, and follow them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been wonderful. And thank you to all of my viewers. And if you enjoy the show, please be nice and subscribe, hit the like button. And also, if you hit the bell, you'll be notified whenever I have a show, or I'm going to be doing some live ones coming up. There's something else I'm going to be announcing soon. So please do that too. And let's all just take a moment in our busy time at some time just to pray for peace too. So it's for that too. So thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Joan. My pleasure.
Bye-bye.